That's a very plum Chicago assignment. And I know
Chicago assignment.
Yeah, and I know there's gonna be a lot of theories.
So it really has a ripple effect.
See what you did there, ripple effect.
Yeah, that's a top secret, and they won't share it.
Welcome to The Takeaway. I'm Alex Maragos. In every episode of The Takeaway, we are having approachable conversations with expert journalists about the biggest stories in Chicago and beyond. And we're going for three things here: what we know, how we know it, and why it matters to you. Now, some stories are Chicago, some are regional, some are national. This story is very Chicago today, and we have Lexi Sutter, NBC5 reporter, here with us, host of the Only in Chicago series. Welcome, Lexi. Welcome to The Takeaway.
Thanks, Alex. Happy to be here.
We are dealing with such a Chicago story. St. Patrick's Day and Chicago dyeing the river green. I don't know if there's a more...
It's iconic.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a more Chicago story. Certainly not that we've done here in 3 episodes. Everybody loves it. Everybody seems to have a good time.
Yep.
It seems to have grown in popularity. My first question is, why do we do this?
And I think that's what everybody wonders. When did this start?
Yeah.
Why did it become such a big deal? 1962 was the year, which was way before social media. So
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't know about it, right? Except the people that lived right downtown or in the heart of Chicago. 1962, Mayor Richard J. Daley said, I want to dye the river green. He actually wanted to dye Lake Michigan. And they said...
So that was the original idea.
Correct.
Lake
Yeah.
Michigan green.
Yes.
The whole thing?
I'm guessing no, right?
Okay.
It had to be maybe just the portion, maybe from Oak Street to North Ave. He was persuaded, let's try an arm of the river.
Okay.
And that's how they landed on exactly what we do right now.
Yeah. That's a great origin story. And do we know like how it was received at the beginning or how popular it was? Because now it seems like, oh yeah, we do it every year and it's
Yeah.
always huge. Was it always that way? Do you know?
I think immediately people loved it.
Okay.
What is so interesting about it, the Plumbers Union actually heads it up now. And the dye itself is an orangish red. So it's not until it hits the water that it turns this bright emerald green.
Wow.
And the plumbers would use it to trace a leak when they were trying to fix any sewage issues. And they noticed, wow, this is a bright green. This would be perfect for St. Patrick's Day. Mayor Daley, Irish Catholic, deep-rooted in his Irish heritage.
Yeah.
So certainly they thought, let's try it, let's give it a go, and it really stuck.
So did Mayor Daley go to the Plumbers Union? Did the plumbers go to Mayor Daley? Because we all kind of accept this thing like, yeah, the Plumbers Union dyes the river.
Right.
When you say that to somebody who's not from Chicago, they're like, wait, what?
What do the plumbers have to do
What do
with
the
it?
plumbers have to do with it? And they do a great job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it started in the mayor's office.
Okay.
And then it was executing, right? So he had some right-hand friends, people, also Irish families in Chicago that are still a part of it today. I know for a fact the Rowan family still has a member on the boat that will be there on Saturday to dye the river. So it really was a collaborative effort in terms of getting all the necessary parties involved. I think the plumbers really served the purpose because they had this dye that they knew was safe to put in the water that they would use in their day-to-day workflow. So it was like, well, why not? Let's celebrate the holiday.
Yes, I lived downtown for 8 years, and I loved that this is a Chicago thing, and people would come in from out of town, and you've lived downtown, and you know how much fun it is to be down here at that time. I just never knew the origin of this finding a leak substance and the fact that it's orange, and then it turns the perfect shade of green for St. Patrick's Day.
Perfect shade. If you look closely, and I hope people will now that they know the origin, the men and women on the boat that are distributing the dye, they're in white suits and they're covered in orange.
Yeah.
Because they're handling this dye and it's orange until it hits the water. So I think a lot of people were like, wait, why does it look orange? That's just the substance, which it is a environmentally safe substance, a vegetable dye, kind of a grainy material that's dropped into the water. So it doesn't hurt the fish. That's what I've heard from people. How does it hurt the landscape or, you know, the creatures living in the lake and the river? It doesn't.
Okay, because that is, I think, at first glance, you're like, wow, this might mess up the river.
For sure.
Chicago River already very messed up for the record. So, but we don't want to make it any worse.
Right.
So this is something that is just a vegetable. Yeah,
and they've worked on that throughout the years to make it even safer.
Okay.
It takes about 45 minutes. They use 40 pounds of this powdery substance, and it can last anywhere from, right, immediately it's emerald green. Usually throughout that weekend, it stays green. But yeah, it's such a cool tradition, and we can say it is Chicago's tradition.
Absolutely. So, and actually you can't see because we're shooting this at nighttime, but right around NBC Tower here is when it just starts crawling with people trying to get the best view. And we know you're going to give us the best places to watch because people assume, okay, if it's on the branch downtown, you're gonna make it easy. But so we started it. but then other cities have tried to make it their own or tried to
That's
copy it.
copycats.
Who's doing that?
Which I believe it's a nice flattery,
Yeah,
right?
that's great.
Imitation is a great source of flattery.
Yeah.
But I think it's not as great as Chicago's. Tampa's doing it. Indianapolis is actually doing a canal. Savannah, Georgia, which I've heard is a great place to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. They now dye a waterway in their city. San Antonio, Texas. So it's very random.
Yeah.
But it has come from Chicago, us doing it back in 1962. Of course, now you can copy things so easily with social media. But you think about back in the 60s, this was really ahead of its time and something to do to bring people downtown and to gather and to celebrate.
Yeah, and I don't know of a more special Chicago celebration that gets this much traction. I mean, like when our sports teams do well,
Right.
or when we have other parades and things, that's great.
Mhm.
But you know, New Orleans has Mardi Gras,
Yep.
and other cities have their thing. This seems to have kind of grown to be our thing.
For sure. And I think I know for a fact it brings hundreds of thousands of people
Yeah.
from my conversations with the city about the tourism impact. You think about the economic impact. People are watching that river dying for a few minutes, but then they're staying downtown. They're sleeping in our hotels. They're eating in our restaurants. So it really has a ripple effect that is wonderful.
See what you did there, ripple
Yeah.
effect. I have to imagine going back to being on the boats. I have to imagine being the people in the plumbers union
Yeah.
who get to go on those. Is it 2 boats?
2 boats,
Like,
8
so-
people.
Yeah, so that's a very
slot.
plum Chicago assignment. And I know,
Chicago is that.
yeah, and I know there's gonna be a lot of theories probably about
Yeah.
how you get on that boat and who you have to treat special to get on that boat.
Right.
No, but how does it get decided?
They haven't told me that.
Ooh.
That's a top secret.
That's
Just
a
like the
Chicago-
recipe. The recipe for the dye is also top secret.
Oh, so we don't know exactly
We
what's
don't know exactly what's in it, and they won't share it.
So there's a Chicago secret with what's in the dye
And who's on the boat?
and how they choose the people.
Correct.
We know who's
Yeah,
on the boat.
we do know that there are representatives from the city, of course, and in the plumbers union. And hey, maybe it's employee of the month, or maybe
Right.
it's someone who did great that year.
We hope it is. That's how we hope they choose.
how
people.
they're chosen. But there's the 2 boats, as you mentioned. First boat drops the dye. Second boat stirs the dye.
Oh, it's a
So
very.
it really is a scientific
There we go.
feat. to
Everybody's
complete this.
got a mission.
They've got it down though.
What I love is, first of all, the Irish American community here in Chicago
So
is
strong.
enormous.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, they're so gracious with everybody appropriating their culture for a week or a day or whatever it
Yep.
ends up being. But this, of course, really means a lot to Irish people and Irish Americans, not just the holiday, but this celebration specifically. Talk about how that's evolved. What's been the evolution of that?
So this was one of the coolest things that I learned in working on this story, and that was the Irish roots in Chicago. You think about the East Coast, you think about Boston and some New York, the big cities where people were coming from other countries. The Irish didn't get as much of an opportunity to make their stamp on those cities. Boston, New York, they are far older than Chicago.
Right.
Chicago was really becoming a city and hitting its stride in the mid-1800s. That's when, unfortunately, the Irish were dealing with the potato famine and they were fleeing. So Chicago was a great place to come. So we're talking about Irish descent, people from Ireland coming and really making our city what it is. Even to this day, we've had about a dozen mayors that are Irish Catholic, really have put their stamp on this community and grown Chicago into what it is. So I think that Irish culture is even thicker and deeper here in Chicago than arguably some other cities.
Is there a point in time in reporting the story that you've seen, okay, we dye the river green, it's cool for Chicagoans, to a point where, oh my gosh, this is now really like a thing. It's on the national news. People in other cities are seeing it. Of course, it's all over your social media feed. Was there ever a turning point where that happened? Or is it social media that did it? What made it as big as it is now?
So, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but as two people who are from Chicago and have been here, have seen it over the decades, I really think social media is what pushed it over the edge.
Yeah.
When you're able to share these remarkable videos from a bird's eye view, from apartments along the river, now restaurants are offering ticketed events so you can get the eye in the sky view of the Green River. You can get the front row seat right there from, Upper Wacker Drive, Michigan Avenue. It's incredible.
Yeah.
You literally see the boats and the people dropping this dye in this river, often frozen, often a little murky.
And you can't
Turns
go
a
in it.
beautiful-
Yeah.
You can't go in it.
Yeah.
Turns a beautiful shade of green.
Yeah.
I mean, the perfect Irish St. Patrick's Day shade of green. So I think seeing all those images and those videos really makes it something that people, almost like a bucket list event. I want to go to Chicago to celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
And something that I've done, I'm guilty of for sure, and I know other people do, is after all the party is done down here, the
Right.
river's still green for how long? 4 or 5 days?
Yeah, at least a few days.
It's just he goes to take the picture when it's maybe a little less crowded.
When it calms down.
Yeah.
Typically, that's like a Sunday afternoon event.
Yes.
Because Saturday is usually a wash, unless you do have that front row seat and you get here very early. But usually you have at least a couple days. A lot of it, also a fun fact, depends on the weather.
Okay.
You think about if it rains,
Oh, yeah.
if it's very windy, it's going to push that green dye out of this central downtown business district. And so it can dissolve quicker.
Yeah. And mid-March in Chicago can mean
Unpredictable.
any kind of, I mean, we've been out here for every single thing. All right. So I know a lot of people want to know, where is the best spot to actually see this happen? It's a long stretch that gets the dye.
Correct.
Where are the primo places to see this thing turn green?
Primo place between Columbus Drive, Michigan Avenue Bridge.
Okay.
Upper Wacker provides a really nice, viewpoint. The Riverwalk is typically closed, so you're going to want to be above.
Close to everybody. Like
Close to everybody for
Okay.
security. So a lot of times you have to get kind of on the sidewalk of the bridge or Upper Wacker. Of course, right here outside our NBC Tower, we've got a great vantage point. So I would say right there between Columbus and Michigan Ave is really where you're going to see so much, and you're going to see the most vibrant shade of green.
I've had the opportunity to see it from that, living so close to NBC Tower for years. I have had the opportunity to see that a few times. And on good weather days, it's 4 or 5 people deep.
Totally.
It's like a parade, but you're just watching a river turn green.
Right. And it's seconds, minutes.
Yeah.
Right? You're standing out there to just get that shot and be there for minutes. But it's a really cool thing to see. They're dyeing it at 10 a.m.
Okay.
I checked the weather forecast.
Oh, you did?
Still several days.
Yeah, we got a little bit of time.
But we're looking at maybe flirting with the 50s.
Oh, that's huge.
So when we're talking a nice day, I would say get your coffee and get downtown around 8-ish if you want to be, those front, few people that are getting a look at it, because people are going to be out and about. Certainly when good weather provides it.
Yeah. This is a fun one too, because we're talking about a party, a celebration. Everybody remembers when they go see it. And of course they're sharing, like we already talked about on social media, but you do remember like seeing it turn green.
And it's become a tradition for families.
Right.
The parade is a huge part of this. This year it's the 70th year for the parade.
Wow.
People love the parade, but the river really kicks it off, the green dye. And not just the parade downtown. We know the South Side Irish Parade is huge. There's a parade on the north side that's huge. So it is just really a well-celebrated holiday and stretch a few days in Chicago.
And you talk about the tradition of it. That you mentioned there's families who have been connected to this for a while. What do we know about those families and how deep that connection goes?
We know they're Irish.
that I assume.
Irish.
Yes.
We maybe can assume they're Irish Catholic.
Right.
So we know that they have heritage that's strong, connected to Ireland. And we know Ireland's maybe the only place better to celebrate St. Patrick's Day than Chicago.
I've been to Ireland, but not during St. Patrick's Day, but I can only imagine.
I actually did attend a St. Patrick's Day in Ireland once in
my
college,
gosh.
and it was a bucket list event. But I've had so many great St. Patrick's Days in Chicago being a part of my city's celebration.
Okay, so you can confirm this is the second best place then.
Second best.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to say I don't want to have anybody angry.
The Irish people have earned that.
This is safe to say. And one thing, back in the day when they started doing this, there was a leader within the city who told reporters, this green river dye is going to make it all the way to the Irish Sea. And that was published. They said it would go from the Chicago River to the Illinois River to the Mississippi River to the Gulf Stream, into the Atlantic, and over the Irish Sea. I think most could assume that was false. That was a stretch. But that lives online. That, if you Google, are we connected to Ireland? That is Chicago's connection to Ireland.
Did they really claim that it would stay green? I mean, I guess the waterways are
the water is connected.
Okay.
I think by the time we're hitting, the north side or the south side, the
it's-
green is losing its emerald shade.
Bubbly Creek takes over.
But they were like, we are connected to Ireland in this way. And now it's looked back on as, maybe a little bit false, maybe exaggerated perhaps. Maybe the reporter was a little bit gullible and it got published that way.
Yeah.
But it's fun to still showcase our connection to Ireland.
Figuratively and metaphorically speaking.
Maybe
we can. Yeah. So you've done how many? This is an Only in Chicago story.
Yep.
How many of these have you done now?
Only in Chicago's, gosh, we started this while you were away in the Olympics.
Oh, okay. So it's been a while then.
And so it has been, over 6 months.
Okay.
And it's been great because it's a chance to showcase the city in a different light.
So there's been probably a dozen more?
Oh, definitely. I would say we're pushing 30. I've done two full-on 30-minute specials of Only in Chicago stories. And we just continue pushing them out weekly.
So the most recent Only in Chicago story I saw was why we don't put ketchup on hot dogs in Chicago.
So no.
It was another thing. It's like, yeah, we don't do that, but I never knew why. And
everywhere you go, isn't it a thing? Being a Chicagoan, like, no, I wouldn't have ketchup.
Right.
So we don't.
Yeah.
Because back in the days of the old Chicago stockyards, we're dealing with the Depression. We're dealing with all sorts of issues. Some of the bad meat they would still sell to the public. They would put ketchup on because ketchup is sweet.
Okay.
It's full of sugar. It would help mask the bad meat taste, which is really gross.
Yeah.
But that's why we're so proud of not putting ketchup on our hot dogs. There would literally be signs in the windows of restaurants that would say mustard only. And people would know in Chicago, I'm going there because that's some good meat.
It's good meat. Okay. So I have to imagine your brain is filled with
think
hundreds or thousands of these facts that you've collected from doing the Only in Chicago series. So throw a couple others that just have stuck with you, like the ketchup one.
Yeah, so one that I think is so interesting between Fullerton and North Avenue, close to DuSable Lakeshore Drive, the Lincoln Park area, all of that grassy area where a lot of people play baseball, they take their dogs to play. It was a cemetery. It was Chicago's first cemetery. In fact, they tried to dig up most of the bodies and move them after the fire, but they didn't. Not all of them.
I know she said tried to. Tried. Yeah.
So next time you're enjoying the beautiful scenery of Lincoln Park, remember you might be walking on a cemetery.
Some folks down there.
But what a fun fact, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not fun, but interesting.
Interesting.
The goal with the series is curiosity, unique, interesting. That was something I found fascinating because I take my dog there all the time. And now I think about it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Another story I did was about the flag, which is the most popular flag in the country. It is widely recognized, but it's a city flag.
Just in terms of people knowing what it looks like?
Well,
or just
people know that's the Chicago flag. But no offense to other cities. Do you know what New York City's flag is? Or Boston's flag? Or New Orleans' flag? Or it doesn't just resonate. And I think what's so interesting about our flag, it was created in the early 1900s, but it really didn't catch on until 60s, 70s, and now in the millennium, people get tattoos of the flag. They have pictures of the flag. They buy scarves, hats. It is a part of our culture.
There's something about it. Do we know what that is, or what's
I've talked to multiple people who say it's very simple.
Okay.
It's recognizable because it's simple. It can lay flat and look nice. It can wave in the wind and look nice. It's not too convoluted. And though it's so simple with 4 stars and colored stripes, blue stripes, white stripes, they all have meaning. It's very intentional.
Yeah.
So that's what we go into in Only in Chicago. It truly is something you can watch with your family and maybe look at each other and say, whoa, that's cool. I didn't know that. And I'm always open to ideas. A lot of it is self-generated. I like to do some research, read books, try to find fun facts and maybe interesting stories you don't know so much about.
Right.
We all know the river has dyed green, but I hope people can take away from this story a little bit more about the history.
All right. So you've had all these Only in Chicago stories. You've had, you've been reporting on this story.
Yeah.
What's your big takeaway from what this celebration means to people here and how it's viewed by people who don't live here?
So I think people can think you have to come down here and you have to drink alcohol. I think that is such a misconception. I think it is a great place to grab your coffee, take a walk with your dog, your family, your friend, and be a part of something that's bigger than you. And everyone is so happy.
Yeah.
It really is a day, an hour on a Saturday morning in March when we're starting to feel alive again. We're coming out of winter. It might still be winter, but we're coming out. It's March, and I feel like the city really just blooms and flourishes in this moment. It's kind of kicking off the summer in Chicago, which we know is famous and we all love.
Yes.
So I think there's so much more to it than celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Even if you think it's silly, I'm not Irish, I don't really care. It's a really cool atmosphere to be a part of, and I would encourage anybody to experience it at least once.
Yeah, and I can vouch that everybody is very happy when they are down here, just enjoying it. Well, we hope everything goes well this year. I feel like I'm so much better prepared to watch it and know the history. So Lexi, thank you so much. It was great to have you on the
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching The Takeaway. If you liked this video, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode.